We will definitely let you know about the fabulous writers we'll be bringing to Vancouver in October, and that you might be interested in. So we'll send you an email. We won't bother you with stupid stuff, only stuff that we really think that you're interested in. And 3 of you, this is what might happen, 3 of you who fill out the feedback form will win a prize package from Razor Bill, and that's Penguin Publishers' new young adult imprint. So we have 3 prize packages, and we'll draw and let you know who's won. Books, of course, are for sale. The signing's going to take place on the stage, and we'd like you to line up. If you, well, of course, they'll sign just about anything, but not everything. But if you line up down here, and then we'll make sure you get up onto the stage and have your thing signed. Usually this is the point in the introduction where we say no photos. Photos. It's really strange to be introducing 2 guys that you know so much about. And the latest book, the New York Times said, he shows us true love, 2 teenagers helping and accepting each other through the most humiliating physical and emotional ordeals, and it is far more romantic than any sunset on the beach. Please welcome John and Hank.
Big deal on the internet. And I have never, in my long sock life, been to Canada. I'm very, very grateful to have such a wonderful welcome today. Thank you. Now I had never known John Green before I went on this tour. I met him in Boston a few weeks ago. He's a pretty cool guy. Well, you guys like him at least? A long time in the band with John. But I like him still. But I had never known him. I did know John Sock, who was my brother. Unfortunately, he could not be here today because he is dead. Oh, the screams. Yes, he was tragically mauled to death by a West Highland White Terrier. I know, it's hilarious, right? My brother is dead! And it's still funny. Can you give me an aww? Okay, that makes me feel much better.
Rest in peace, Hank!
Oh my goodness. I would like to apologize for my friend Hank Green, because he has a little bit of a cold. And he may be coughing during this introduction. And I don't know why that's going to interfere with me talking. But it may. We do want you to take pictures, specifically pictures of me. If you could tag me on Twitter or Facebook, that would be great. I'd like to see myself on Tumblr. Makes me feel like a special person. Suck, I mean. But the one thing that I did notice the first time I saw John and Hank together was that they look startlingly like the twin rock duo from the 90s, the Proclaimers. If you are here to see the Proclaimers tonight, this is the wrong show. You know those guys, right? The I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more. Now, if you like them, that's great, but if you came to see them, just you can go home. Thank you all for coming out today. This is really exciting. It's the last show of the tour to Nerdfighting. I'm so thrilled to see you all huddled under the awning in the rain. Thank you all so much for singing "O Canada" for us. We love your national pride. And now, without further ado, I would like to bring out the man of the hour, John Green, to read from his New York Times best-selling book, The Balkan.
Thank you all so much for coming, and congratulations on being Canadian. So, Hazel Grace Lancaster has just made the acquaintance of Augustus Waters at a support group for young people with cancer, and Hazel finds herself rather suddenly in Augustus's basement bedroom. A shelf at my eye level reached all the way around the room, and it was stuffed solid with basketball memorabilia. Dozens of trophies with gold plastic men mid-jump shot, or dribbling, or reaching for a layup toward an unseen basket. There were also lots of signed balls and sneakers. I used to play basketball, he said. You must have been pretty good. I wasn't bad, but all the shoes and balls are cancer perks. He walked toward the TV where a huge pile of DVDs and video games were arranged into a vague pyramid. I was like the prototypical white Hoosier kid, he said. I was all about resurrecting the lost art of the mid-range jumper. But then one day I was shooting free throws, just like standing at the foul line at the North Central gym, shooting from a rack of balls, and all at once, I couldn't figure out why I was methodically tossing a spherical object through a toroidal object. It seemed like the stupidest thing I could possibly be doing. I started thinking about little kids putting cylindrical pegs through circular holes and how they do it over and over again for months when they figure it out, and how basketball was basically just a slightly more aerobic version of that same exercise. Anyway, for the longest time I just kept sinking free throws. I hit like 80 in a row, but as I kept going, I felt more and more like a 2-year-old. And then for some reason I started to think about hurdlers. Are you okay? I'd taken a seat on the corner of his unmade bed. I wasn't trying to be suggestive or anything. I just got kind of tired when I had to stand a lot. I'd stood in the living room, and then there had been the stairs, and then more standing, which was quite a lot of standing for me, and I didn't want to faint or anything. I was a bit of a Victorian lady, fainting-wise. I'm fine, I said, just listening. Hurdlers? Yeah, hurdlers. I don't know why. I started thinking about them running their hurdle races and jumping over these totally arbitrary objects that had been set in their path, and I wondered if hurdlers ever thought, you know, this would go a lot faster if we got rid of the hurdles. This was before your diagnosis, I asked? Right, well there was that too. He smiled with half his mouth. The day of the existentially fraught free throws was coincidentally also my last day of dual-leggedness. I had a weekend between when they scheduled the amputation and when it happened, my own little glimpse of what Isaac is going through. I nodded. I liked Augustus Waters. I really, really liked him. I liked the way his story ended with someone else. I liked his voice. I liked that he took existentially fraught free throws. I liked that he was a tenured professor in the Department of Slightly Crooked Smiles. And I liked that he had 2 names. I've always liked people with 2 names because you get to make up your mind what you call them. Gus or Augustus. Me, I was always just Hazel. Univalent Hazel. So what's your story? He asked, sitting down next to me at a safe distance. I already told you my story. I was diagnosed when I was... No, not your cancer story. Your story. Interests, hobbies, passions, weird fetishes, etc. I said, don't tell me you're one of those people who becomes your disease. I know so many people like that. It's disheartening. Like, cancer isn't a growth business, right? The taking people over business. But surely you haven't let it succeed prematurely. It occurred to me that perhaps I had. I struggled with how to pitch myself to Augustus Waters, which enthusiasms to embrace. And in the silence that followed, I realized that I wasn't very interesting. I'm pretty unextraordinary. I reject that out of hand. Think of something you like, the first thing that comes to mind. Reading? What do you read? Everything from like hideous romance to pretentious fiction to poetry, whatever. Do you write poetry too? No, I don't write. There! Augustus almost shouted. Hazel Grace, you're the only teenager in America who prefers reading poetry to writing it. This tells me so much. You read a lot of capital G great books, don't you? I guess? What's your favorite? I said. My favorite book by a wide margin was An Imperial Affliction, but I didn't like to tell people about it. Sometimes you read a book and it fills you with this weird evangelical zeal, and you become convinced that the shattered world will never be put back together unless and until all living humans read the book. And then there are books like An Imperial Affliction, which you can't tell people about. Books so special, and rare and yours that advertising your affection feels like a betrayal. It wasn't even that the book was so good or anything, it was just that the author, Peter Van Houten, seemed to understand me in weird and impossible ways. And Imperial Affliction was my book, in the way my body was my body, and my thoughts were my thoughts. But even so, I told Augustus. My favorite book is probably An Imperial Affliction, I said. Does it feature zombies? He asked. No, I said. Stormtroopers? I shook my head. It's not that kind of book. He smiled. I'm gonna read this terrible book with the boring title that doesn't contain stormtroopers, he promised. And I immediately felt like I shouldn't have told him about it. Augustus spun around to a stack of books behind his bedside table. He grabbed a paperback and a pen. As he scribbled an inscription onto the title page, he said, "All I ask in exchange is that you read this brilliant and haunting novelization of my favorite video game." He held up the book, which was called The Price of Dawn. I laughed and took it. Our hands kind of got muddled together in the book handoff, and then he was holding my hand. "Cold," he said, pressing a finger to my pale wrist. "Not cold so much as under-oxygenated," I said. I love it when you talk medical to me. He stood and pulled me up with him and did not let go of my hand until we reached the stairs. Later, back at my house, I put the car into park and looked over at him. He really was beautiful. I know boys aren't supposed to be, but he was. "Hazel Grace," he said, my name new and better in his voice. "It has been a real pleasure to make your acquaintance." "Ditto, Mr. Waters," I said. I felt shy looking at him. I couldn't match the intensity of his water blue eyes. "May I see you again?" he asked. There was an endearing nervousness in his voice. I smiled. "Sure. Tomorrow?" he asked. "Patience, grasshopper," I counseled. "You don't want to seem overeager." "Right, that's why I said tomorrow," he said. "I want to see you again tonight, but I'm willing to wait all night and much of tomorrow." I rolled my eyes. "I'm serious," he said. "You don't even know me." I grabbed the book from the center console. "How about I call you when I finish this?" "But you don't have my phone number," he said. "I strongly suspect you wrote it in the book." He broke out into that goofy smile. "And you say we don't know each other." Stopped at border control. There's a funny thing, I don't know if you've seen it, but we're traveling around in this van that has my name on it. So we go up to the border patrol and we all give our passports, and the guy says, "Can you bring up John Green?" And so I come up from the back of the van and I'm like, "Hi." And he said, "When was the last time you were in Canada?" And I said, "I think 2002. And he said, "And what happened?" And I was like, "Nothing. I was in the Yukon Territory for a while. It was quite nice, very pretty. Had a medical issue that was taken care of very nicely by well-qualified doctors at an extraordinarily low cost." I don't know. And then he got on the phone for 20 minutes. And he hung up the phone and he said, "In 1995, you were denied entry into Canada." And I said, "Yes, that's true. I was denied entry into Canada on the grounds of insufficient funds. But here I am, in a van with my name on it. And I'm only staying for a day. I think it's okay." And he let us in. So I'm glad. I also want to apologize, one, for how sick Hanky is, and two, for how tired we are, and how quickly you will be rushed through the signing line, which is not a lack of affection for you, but rather an affection for the people who are at the end of the signing line, who are also nice and would also like to have their stuff signed. But we'll go over that a little bit more later. I want to talk a little bit about The Fault in Our Stars, why I came to write this particular book, and the process of writing it, but I want to begin by making a broad observation, which is that you, in this life, choose what to think about. It's one of the very few truly sovereign choices that we have. And certainly your thinking is sometimes circumscribed, like if you have a really bad headache, it's difficult to think about anything other than your really bad headache. If you just got dumped by a girl, it's difficult to think about anything other than how great she was or whatever. But for the vast majority of our lives, we do have a choice in what we think about. And the way that we spend those moments that we have as conscious human beings is very important, because we are going to spend them and then they will be spent and we will be dead. Sorry. And given the temporariness of consciousness, it is a very precious thing. And we all know that it's possible to waste that gift. This amazing gift that we're able to talk to each other, that we're able to use language to create stories that exist inside of other people's minds, that we're able to observe the universe, that we're able to think about what it means to be alive, all of that stuff. All of that stuff that goes along with consciousness. We all know what an extraordinary gift it is, but we also all waste it all the time, every day. Like if you've ever, there's an American television show that is called Jersey Shore. I mean, I think all of them are equal, actually. Like, that one happens to be, like, slightly more, like, misogynistic and problematic than others. I'm sorry, by the way, if, like, the situation is here in the audience tonight. But he is a bit of a misogynist. And you know that if you've ever seen that television show, or frankly, most other television shows, you know that it is possible to waste 22 minutes of your life. It is also possible to waste much more time than that, which is why it's so important that we make thoughtful, conscious choices about how we orient our lives, about what we value, about what we want to get out of this world. And a lot of the way that we do that is by figuring out what constitutes, like, goodness as a life or as a person. What makes you a good person and what gives you a good life? What kind of life do you want to have, and how are you going to go about getting it? Those questions turn out to be really super important in the way that we spend our consciousness. Like, how we answer those questions, I think, is really, really important. So, that's really was the beginning of The Fault in Our Stars for me, because many people get to have wonderful, long lives that it's easy to say at their funerals when they die at the age of like 176 or whatever, oh, it's a bummer, but he lived a good, full life. Well, lots of people don't get to live to be 176. And even if you do, it's possible to waste quite a bit of that time and to look back and say they didn't lead a good, full life. And the question that began this novel for me was, is it possible to have a good, full life that isn't a long life? Is it possible to have a life that's valuable, that's well-lived, that's focused in the right places, that quote-unquote matters, without having a long life? And I started wanting to write about that because I had worked as a chaplain at a children's hospital for about 5 months when I was right out of college, when I was just 22. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with that question, because I wanted to find a way that I could live with the things I'd seen, with the young people I'd known who died, with the families who were devastated by the loss of those children. And I wanted to find meaning in that. But mostly I wanted to, like, work through it for myself. And so for the first, like, 8 years that I was writing this story, it was really bad and self-indulgent and really sentimental. And I think most of that was because there was the main character was this dashingly handsome 22-year-old hospital chaplain. It was like, which hot doctor will he hook up with next? I wish I were kidding about that. And I'd send it to my editor, and she'd be like, you know, the kids in this book are really interesting, and their stories are really interesting, and I want to hear more of them, but the chaplain is very distracting. And I'd be like, well, the chaplain is the center of the thing. There's nothing without the chaplain. And I don't think I ever would have been pulled out of it if I hadn't, in 2008, made the acquaintance. By the way, for those of you who think that you were coming to like a book signing or whatever, my brother and I make videos on the internet, and the community, there are people who don't know about this, so just let me explain it. The community of people who watch our videos and do also lots of other things is called the Nerdfighter community, because we fight for nerd rights and intellectualism, and we celebrate intelligence. And in 2008, I met a young woman who was a fan of our videos and a reader of my books named Esther Earle, who, even when I met her, had incurable cancer, although I didn't realize that at the time. I knew that she was sick, but I didn't know the severity of her diagnosis. And over the course of knowing Esther for the 2.5 years before she died, and knowing her friends and her family, I was drawn out of the story. And I don't think I ever could have written the story if it hadn't been for the time that I was blessed to know Esther. I don't think that I ever could have made it about anything other than that annoying 22-year-old hospital chaplain, because I needed to be taken out of the story so that I could make it a gift for you instead of making it something to help me process something that I went through that frankly you don't and shouldn't care about. It wasn't so much that Esther was sick, it was that she was just so extraordinarily charismatic and empathetic and outwardly focused as a person, and that gave me insight into what it was like to be sick for her, and helped me to write Hazel, although I should note that Hazel and Esther are very, very different people, and particularly since Esther is not here to defend herself against terrible accusations like that she would watch America's Next Top Model. The question at the center of the book for both Hazel and Gus is how they're going to live heroic lives, even if they don't get to live long lives, or healthy lives, or typically full lives. Because Gus is down a leg and Hazel is down a lung about, and how are they going to lead good lives? And the model of heroism that they have, particularly that Gus has, is not a very helpful one on that front. Because the model of heroism that he's inherited is the model of heroism that we see in first-person shooter video games, but those did not invent the idea of the capital R romantic hero on a capital E epic journey. The inventor of that was this guy, Homer. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this story called The Odyssey. I'm going to ruin it for a few of you, but it's not really a spoilable thing. So, very quickly, there's this guy, and he goes and he does some warring, really good warring, and then he has to come home, but it takes forever. Because all of these things, problems, obstacles get in his way, some of them, frankly, bordering on ridiculous. Eventually he gets home, takes like 20 years, he gets home, and he goes to see his wife, and there's a bunch of guys living in his house, and also a number of young ladies, although given their behavior one uses the term loosely. And the appropriate response in that moment, when this happens to you, you come home, it's been 20 years, you got a bunch of guys and some ladies living in your house and mooching off of you and whatnot, is to be like, hey, I know there was no text messaging, you didn't know that I was fine, you had every reason to expect that I was dead. I'm not dead, I'm here, y'all need to leave. That is not his response. His response is to slaughter 110 people, and the palace floor is coarse with blood, and etc., and that's your happy ending. Well, I don't agree with that model of heroism. I don't think that constitutes a heroic journey at all. I really don't. And those epics that we've inherited, or that you see in the first-person shooter video game, for instance, where a guy has to kill a ton of people for a virtuous reason, and then at some point has to make some heroic sacrifice that involves like jumping on a grenade to save his buddies, but fortunately you can hit continue. That idea of a heroic life is really, really problematic for a number of reasons. And so I wanted to write in Gus a character who has inherited that same romantic ideal that we all live with about what constitutes a heroic life that isn't a long life, a good life that isn't a long life, but that has to struggle with the fact that like almost every one of us, he's not going to have a chance to jump on a grenade. Almost all of us are going to have to find little ways to be heroic. Almost all of us are going to have to find little ways in our lives to spend our consciousness in a way that's going to be kind to other people, that's going to be generous to ourselves, and that's also going to honor the people who came before us and respect the people who are still to come after us. And that really is what The Fault in Our Stars is about. More about heroism and the way that it works in our lives, but I feel like the best way to do that would be in song. sing. I'm very, very bad at it. So, instead, I'm going to bring an extraordinarily accomplished young man to the stage. And I'm not just saying that because his central accomplishment is being my brother. Hank Green is the founding editor of EcoGeek.org, the world's largest environmental technology website. He also co-founded DFTBA Records, the world's most awesome record company. He founded VidCon, the largest online video conference in the world, which this year will have many thousands of attendees. He also founded the Project for Awesome, YouTube's largest charity event. But perhaps most impressively, he is the inventor of 2D glasses. Render three-dimensional movies in a crisp and stunning 2 dimensions. And in 1998, his classmates at Winter Park High School in Winter Park, Florida voted him Best Dancer. Ladies and gentlemen, Hank Green.
I want to sing a song for you. Someone gave this to me last night. Because of how awesome Nerdfighters are.
What did it say?
Oh, sorry, what does it say?
Here.
It says...
I held a Picasso print while eating Pringles.
I still can't hear. I held a Picasso print while eating Pringles first. I think that should become a thing. I think that first should become a thing. Like we should all be searching for things that we can do that no one else has ever done before. And what's the one combination of things that you can get at Subway? Like the things that you can get on a Subway sub that no one has ever done. And you walk in and you're like, I would like a sub with just all of the sauces. Can I have one of those? So I want to sing you some songs. The first one I want to sing is about John Green's new book, The Fault in Our Stars. I got to read it before any of you. I mean, it's a YouTube first. There were a couple other people before me, like John. But close. So the song's called Video Game Books, and it's about, it's a conversation between Hazel and Gus. Hazel sort of started to understand him a little bit, and she would never write poetry like this, but whatever. We all can dream of blazing glories, but all I dream of now is you and your blue eyes. It's strange to think how we can feel we don't live our own lives. I wasn't sure about my own, but now I'm feeling fine. Your video game books, they might get me funny looks, but Staff Sergeant Max Mayhem gets me hot. And I'm starting to see not just what you want from me, but what you want to get from what you got. Sorry. Now what do you think you're gonna be? You think you'll leave some kind of lasting mark? Well, with infinite tomorrows, and no, this isn't fair. No one gets remembered, but right now I just don't care. Your video game books, they might get me funny looks, but Staff Sergeant Max Mayhem gets me hot. I'm starting to see not just what you want from me, but what you want to get from what you got. There's not a lot of amputations amputee heroes in history. Now I wish our lives were so much simpler, and I hope you get to have your moment in the fight, but no one ever gets to be quite who they want to be. And you want it to matter, boy, well, you matter to me. Your video game books, they might get me funny looks, but Staff Sergeant Max Mayhem gets me hot. And I'm starting to see not just what you want from me, but what you want to get from what you got. There's not a lot of amputee heroes in history, but I've got one sitting right in front of me. Screaming on for no reason? Okay, you were like, we're not. That was a sad song, so we don't want to clap too loudly at first, but then we'll have more later. Very unusual. I've never had applause like that. Good job, guys. This song is also about a book. It's about a book that doesn't exist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's called Book 8.
Yeah. What's he gonna do?
Don't you know that you're a big deal? Okay, everybody, Michael's gonna take some footage. Just ignore him. More attractive than I am. We're moving up. Eyes here. I know I'm not the only one who wants to know more about Harry's sons. I really think there's an unwritten story, and I think it's like the fingers to keys. I want to know more about the Wall and Downfall 4. I really think that they're both bad and lefty, and I think there's probably a good story there. Both I want a book I want a book and I want J.K. Rowling to say that the epilogue was crap, cause we all know it was crap. And I want J.K. Rowling to say that Voldemort had a son, and the story's just begun. And I want J.K. Rowling to say that she's writing books. A lot of people, I don't want to hear the tale of that mysterious tale. I really think it's a dimensional portal, and I think Sirius is in Middle Earth. I want to hear the one about Hagrid's dad and Hagrid's mom. I really do think that that's nearly impossible, and I think there's probably a good story there. I want a bouquet. I want a bouquet. And I want J.K. Rowling to say that the epilogue was crap, cause we know it was crap. And I want J.K. Rowling to say that Voldemort had a son, and the story's just begun. And I want J.K. Rowling to say that she's written books. She could call it Harry Potter and the Pillar of Storage, or Harry Potter and the Knights Who Sing Me, or Luna Lovegood gets her own book all to herself. And Benedict apologize for my maybe slightly more authentic singing style. That's what you say now. If it's a little bit less good, it's more authentic than the rest of the tour because of my cold. No one use this microphone after. I'll attempt to not spit on anyone in the first few rows here. Oh, they're all. And spit. No. I totally did that. I totally spat on a girl on this tour, and she did not enjoy it. She was not like, ah! It was a perfectly like this is how you feel when you get spat on.
It's on my glasses, guys.
Apparently she was Hank's song. This song is about particle physics.
A quark is a fundamental constituent of matter. Observed in 1968 through deep elastic scatter. We found that protons aren't as simple as we thought. We thought they were solid particles, but they are not. Protons, in fact, are made up of separate pieces. It just gets more confusing as our knowledge increases. But that is what a proton is. It's a piece of a proton, and they also make up other things, including a neutron. Oh, up, down, strange charm, top, bottom. If you don't know what a quark is, it don't matter. You still got them. And with leptons and bosons, unless it was a miss, they make up everything that we can see and that we know exists.
It's made up of quarks, including protons and neutrons, are composite particles that physicists call hadrons. Many types of hadrons are theoretically described, but most exist for only very brief amounts of time. Quarks have electric charge, colored charge, mass, and spin. Having colored charge means they exist solely inside of other kinds of particles and cannot exist alone, which quarks have never been studied on their own.
Oh, up, down, strange charm, top, bottom. If you don't know what a quark is, it don't matter, you still got them. With leptons and bosons, unless it was a miss, they make up everything that we can see and that we know exists.
Well, these tiny bits of matter are part of almost everything, and there is no unified theory to make it less confusing. But the fact that we've identified that they exist at all is so freaking remarkable that I just sit in awe.
Up, down, strange charm, top, bottom. If you don't know what a quark is, it don't matter, you still got them. When the leptons and bosons, unless it was a miss, they make up everything that we can see and that we know exists.
Up, down, strange charm, top, bottom.
If you don't know what a quark is, it don't matter, you still got them. With leptons and bosons, unless it was a miss, they make up everything that we can see and that we know exists. Everything that we can see and that we know exists. They make up everything that we can see and that we know exists. They make up everything that we can see and that we know exists. They make up everything.
He's great. I'm sorry that we don't have any of his CDs for sale here, but you know, customs. Well, good news, available on iTunes and at DFTBA.com. So, including that first song that he sung, which will be on his tour CD, which will be available in very small quantity at DFTBA. So, I am going to thank a few people, say hello to a couple special guests, and also go over very quickly some rules for the signing line. Rule number one, be appreciative of my social anxiety disorder. It makes it impossible for me to hug and or touch you. Nothing personal. Rule number two, we'll sign 3 things each. You can choose which 3 things. I'm sorry that we can't sign more than 3 things, but I have terrible, terrible carpal tunnel syndrome that has gotten much worse on tour. Oh yes, I know. I feel terrible sympathy for me. We can personalize books and CDs. We can't personalize other things. I'm sorry, and we can only write your first name, your real first name, not your Twitter username that, for all I know, might be racist. Yes. I hope that's all okay. If it isn't, too bad. I want to thank everybody who made it possible for us to be here in Vancouver today, beginning with the university and the festival and all the people who are helping out running the show tonight. I also really want to thank Penguin Canada for making this possible. They're great. I guess you guys have the pleasure of saying hello to Michael Aranda already, but Michael Aranda's here. Really nice guy. One of my favorite people, I guess, as a human being, who's also on YouTube. Really, I think very highly of him. Now it's getting awkward. Okay. Okay. This is, many of you know that Hank's wife Catherine has been with us on the whole tour, and she's been amazing, like just keeping us calm, being funny. Just it's such a pleasure to hang out with Catherine and to have had these last 3 weeks with Hank and Catherine, and like to be together as adults. So fun to know and like your siblings and the people they love as adults. My wife has not been able to be here as often because we have a young son, but she has been able to fly in a couple of times to say hi when we could get babysitters and stuff, and my mom has been staying with Henry for the last few days, so we've had Sarah on the road with us, which has been really fun. Those of you who watch our videos know that my wife does not appear in the videos because she is quiet and private. But she is a nerd fighter, and she has been literally since the very beginning. And she really wanted to come out and say hello. But first,
Oh no!
Hold on.
Yeah.
But first, I just saw. There is one last person that I want to thank. The person without whom none of this would have happened, and we would have quit in Boston, and we would never have been here in Vancouver, which is our amazing driver, Julie. Like, calm, cool, collected person who is also able to drive in ways that are not technically possible. Like she has some kind of like Harry Potter spell that she could just like throw out there and just make it work. We've never been late to an event, despite astonishing odds. And that is all thanks to her, and she has just been amazing. It's been such a pleasure to meet and know her over the last 3 weeks, and I'm psyched to go home to my son, but I'm going to miss that very much. So I'm going to bring out my wife to say hi, but please don't freak out because she, like I said, she's a pretty private person, she's calm, but she does want to say hello. So ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Green!
Each other for so long. Your heart's been aching, but you're too shy to say it. Besides, we both know what's been going on. You know the game here, gotta play it again. If you ask me how I'm feeling, don't tell me you're too blind to see. I'm never gonna give you up. I'm never gonna let you down. I'm gonna run around and hurt you. I'm not gonna make you cry. I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna tell a lie. Hurt you.
I believed it for half a second. We changed it from Henry. I got clipped for half a second.
That's called getting Hank rolled. If you don't know what it is, I can't explain it to you. It involves like 10 different internet jokes. I've got a timer here. It's going to go down from 11 minutes to 0 minutes. If I'm talking, when the timer goes off, I get shocked with the shocking device. It really shocks you, it really hurts, it's not a joke, it's very uncomfortable.
Yay.
But for the next 10 minutes and 45 seconds, I want to answer your questions about The Fault in Our Stars, or maybe my other books. The only thing that I would ask is that you not ask questions that involve spoilers, which should seem obvious, but repeatedly on this tour, people have been like, in Looking for Alaska, biggest spoiler ever, blah, 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 blah. Don't do that. Here's an interesting statistic. 99.8% of Canadians have not read Looking for Alaska.
Gas.
Okay, it's actually a higher, you know, it's not, that's because not many people read books. So try to be